This morning, we are going to start with having a really amazing conversation with a just bright human who is doing so much work across the globe and using her advocacy to make sure that there are voices for youth, not only at the table, but are being included every step of the way. It's super important that we continue to think about how we can get our young people involved and help to make these decisions. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to speaking with her this morning. She's a very bright, cheery person in the sky, and I'm very excited that her light can shine down on us today. So let's take a look.
Mr. President, Secretary General, Member States, and leaders from the private sector. My name is Vee Kativhu. I am one of the 17 young leaders here at the United Nations. I am extremely honored here in Ghana. So join me in welcoming the Secretary General. Thank you so much for being here today.
Great pleasure.
Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex.
Thank you, Vee, for the very warm welcome.
I'm excited to be here and meet more of our young changemakers. When we look around the room, young people are rarely anywhere to be found at the decision-making tables, and that is not good enough. Education and SDG 4 to take climate action. Ladies
and gentlemen, please help me give a warm welcome to Vee Kativhu. Vee!
Hello!
I'm so happy to see you this morning.
Be here.
Yeah. Can we just call out that she has this cute Power to the Youth pin on her lapel? Already starting off on a good note, right? So we are here to represent Vee. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and for being such a strong, powerful voice for our young people. You've worked with so many different outstanding leaders across the globe, spreading your voice of advocacy, the importance of education. And I think that's super important. You've worked with people like Prince Harry, which, OMG, that's crazy. Yusuf Sai, like so many.
Cool. He's a prince.
Yeah, I mean, it's not every day we all get to sit next to a prince. One day. So what was that like? How has that experience been for you?
Meeting Prince Harry?
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay.
Inquiring minds definitely want to know.
Of course. I mean, beyond him being so wonderful and so caring, he's just so personable. And when he walked in the room, it was very much about the mission. And I'd won the Diana Award, so he was coming in to kind of help advocate for that. And the Diana Award is for young people who are doing advocacy work, and it's the highest award you can win for philanthropy from the age of like 10 to 26 or something. So he was coming in to kind of solidify that, and he was just so warm and he really cared and really like gave that support. And I think that's always important. Like when I get to meet these world leaders, you can tell they're seeing beyond just like ticking a box, you know, They're coming in to be like, no, I really believe in what you're doing. So, I mean, and he was really handsome and so lovely. And it was just, I was a bit starstruck. I had to be like, be professional, you know?
Yeah.
But no, he's great. I like that we started there.
Yeah.
This is going to be a great chat. Buckle in, everyone.
I think we did too.
Yeah.
You've also been a really huge champion for youth on a multitude of levels, including at the UN. Talk to us a little bit about what that experience has been like. How has being a part of the UN really kind of changed, I want to say the face, but the voice for young people?
Yeah, I mean, that was just an unexpected experience. I mean, I remember putting it on my vision board when I was about 18, 17, just saying, if they'll even let me just come in and like make coffee or just like have work experience, I'll take it. You know, it was this big vision idea of like wanting to be at the United Nations. And I was watching a speech back from 2016 when I'd just gotten in to Oxford, and I was just sharing like my dreams for the future. And I said it on stage. I was like, maybe one day I can represent young people or Zimbabwe on an international level, maybe at the UN. Like it was just such a out of this world dream and vision. Back in 2022, when I received this email that out of like over 5,000 young people who'd like wanted this role, that they'd chosen me and 17 other young people to represent these sustainable development goals, to represent youth advocacy, I was just in shock because, number one, I didn't think that the UN would do something like that where they're actually starting to open up their doors. But number two, like I didn't realize that my work had reached such a global scale that I could represent like part of Zimbabwe in Europe, just like me. and then have like other 70 incredible young leaders. So that has been phenomenal. And being there, it's been a challenge, a mix of like both good and bad. And I always believe in life is a nuance, right? You can have two things being true at once, where I feel flattered to be in rooms like that, but at the same time frustrated, because now I'm in there, I'm like, this has to change,
Right.
you know? And I think it's okay to admire an institution, but also have feedback for it. And I've always done that in my entire career so far. I'm 26, guys, you know, but in my long life, I've tried to do that in all the institutions that I'm a part of, like being at Oxford and being like, this is my dream university. I can't believe I'm here. But you need to diversify. You need to invest your funds better. You need to do this. And it's scary to do that as a young person, because you know, they still need to mark your homework and you're like criticizing how they do their outreach. So yeah, being at the UN has felt like a complicated emotion of pride, but also thinking, where are the young people like in this institution, you know? How are you representing them when you talk about it so much? But I don't see it. And I don't think I would mind, and I know it's not your question, but I don't think I'd mind so much if, kind of like going to a restaurant, right? And someone saying, we sell vegan food. That's great. Like, I'm walking in there knowing what I'm going to get. If I walk in there and I'm like, but where's like my cheeseburger? I'm going to look crazy because it said it's vegan. But if I walk there and it's like, you're going to get the best hamburger ever, and then I see like a mushroom, I'm going to be upset because you falsely advertise this, you know? And I think with the United Nations right now, they're talking about youth advocacy. It's in their mandates. It's the thing they care about them. So when I'm there, why does the room not represent what you're saying you're doing? That's my issue. Let's just be honest about what the actual goal is. And if they said, hey, young people, it's not your time, let us do our thing, I say, you know what? I'm mad about it, but at least you said it.
Right.
But to say one thing and do another, that's what frustrates me. So
Speak. Wow. She said what she said. Yep.
yeah.
So now that you've kind of gotten that foot in the door, right, and you're there, what is and obviously stuff like that comes with challenges. You're talking to global leaders from every corner of the world.
Yeah.
What has the receptivity been like from all of these leaders, right? Like now they're like, okay, you're opening the door. How is that been part of the challenge?
I mean, it's difficult. And I have my mom and my auntie here, and my mom's working her way to make a video and my auntie's right there. But they always tell me, they're like, hey, do you want to tweak that speech a little bit? Are you sure you want to give that speech in front of the president? I'm like, yes, I do. Because at the end of the day, I'm not yet like, you know, like on the payroll. You know what I mean? Like, I can say whatever. You're going to defire me? You know? So I'm like, if I don't say it now and I'm in the room, I'm able to be here and I'm frustrated looking at what I'm seeing, let alone the young people who are affected by this, who don't even know this meeting is happening, who will never have a seat in this room because they can't get the visa to come through. They might not even know what the latest policy is because you're not really disseminating the information properly. So if I don't say it on behalf of them, then who will say it? So I always have to have a sense of bravery of, it doesn't matter who's sitting in front of me. It could be the prince, it could be the president, it could be the secretary general. I respect the work you've done and for you to get where you've gotten, but you're never too young to lead and you're never too old to learn, right? And I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, because there are like 10 security guards guarding you and you know, that now I'm not going to tell you that this institution needs to change. I think then we would be doing a disservice to our leaders, in fact, if we don't hold them to account. And when it comes to youth advocacy or youth inclusion or engagement, I've taken it upon myself. No one asked me to do it, by the way. I've taken it upon myself to be that person who happily be like, you know, shake it up a little bit. And it'll be interesting. It'll be like a beautiful room like this. Everyone's like, oh, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. And then I'm like, I'm sorry to do this, you know, like because it's all very nice. I'm like, are we missing something? Like, I just recently gave a speech and it was all these prime ministers in the room and they're all shaking hands like, we're doing a great job. We're doing amazing work. I'm like, who's going to tell them?
You.
Imagine that, having a career where like you're constantly being told you're doing great only. Someone's got to come in and challenge it, you know? And I'm sorry, I just care too much about how young people feel or how decisions are made about them. Because if you're not going to have me in the room because I'm too young, this and this, at least make sure that the decisions you are making on behalf of me are at least actually helpful. So now if you're not letting me in the room, plus the decisions you're making aren't that great, when I get on that podium and stage, you're not going to get cute V. You're going to
Listen, I'm here for it.
get...
I'm here for it. You're never too young to lead. You're never too old to learn.
Yeah.
Love that. I think we found the theme for the next summit. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I, I appreciate what you are doing for young people. I think it's really important. Like, sometimes we have to bust through that door and we have to say, okay, I need you to listen now. Like, yeah. And I think that's important. I think, and you're doing this on such a global scale with presidents, heads of states. I mean, really big people. And I think what you're speaking to is very scalable to even us in this room.
Oh, yeah.
Every person in this room works alongside or directly with young people. So I think that message really rings clear. And when we're thinking about, the people that having youth that at the table when they're making decisions, not only about us, but for us, that impact us directly, kind of maybe looking at specific things like what are we doing right? But also where are we kind of pitfalling a little bit? What do we really kind of specifically need to be paying attention to more of?
I mean, I think that this summit is incredible, right? Like, champions for youth, because as much as I'm like, okay, like, you have to have those youth voices in the room, you have to like listen to young people, we also need to focus on the people who are in those decision-making seats, who have the budgets, right? I think some of you in this room might have control over the budgets and what programs you're implementing next, or what campaigns you're running, or what's going on. So it is also important for me to be in rooms like this, just to remind you, like, the level of impact that you are going to have, even if you're not necessarily the person at the organization who's at the front and like giving the speech, or like going into the communities to look at the programs you're running. You might be the person who is like doing the Excel sheet, or the person that is still the champion for youth, right? Like, every person who touches any part of a program that's going to impact, especially the health of youth, right? We're at a conference about the health of youth,
Right.
a summit. And even that, like, you need every single person in the organization from beginning to end who has anything to do with a product that's going to be used by youth, or included in youth's life, or put into schools. You are a champion for youth, and you have to always bear in mind, like, how is what I am currently working on or providing going to be felt and used by the person at the end of this, right? Would you feel proud if you had to be the person who randomly got selected in the organization to go and stand in a room like this in front of all the young people who are going to use that program or the thing that you're facilitating? Would you still feel proud when you run through the exact details of what you're implementing? Would you still feel proud when you're like, oh, this is how we allocated our budget? Would you still feel proud if you're like, actually, like, we're not willing to implement like the pronouns use? Like, would you still feel proud to be like, actually, we heard what you said in the survey, but for now we're not going to implement it because you don't know what you're talking about, even though this program is actually for you. It's going to be used by you. Like, if you feel you'd be proud enough to read your annual report, or like whatever things that you are like working on right now, if you could stand there and explain it and truly look in the face of the person who will be using that thing, then yeah, fine, do your thing.
Right.
But if you feel like, and are you thinking in an inclusive way? Like, when you're visualizing the person you're going to be helping to impact, especially a program that's about the health, right? We're talking about raising awareness. We're talking about helping for change their lives, essentially.
Right.
Do you feel like you're thinking of that young Black student who maybe is in a home that they don't feel as cared about and they need more support? Are you thinking about the young person who's in the wheelchair? Are you thinking, like, how accessible, and could you stand in a room of these groups of young people and justify why you've created that program in that way? That's always what I'm thinking about. Like, if you went viral, are you going to be happy? Right? If your meetings went viral and they were filmed when you're making these decisions about young people, would you still feel proud?
That's a really interesting.
That's what I want to know. If I could just be a fly on the wall, you don't know I'm watching because you now know how I am. If you don't know that I'm watching, I'm making my notes, would you still be like, yeah, V, like, come on?
You mentioned the surveys, right? Like, making sure, and I said at the top, making sure that we're making data-informed decisions, right? Even if it's surveying. Do you find that people have the right information? Like, is it old? Or is it good enough? Are we asking the right questions in the beginning?
I think to know if you're asking the right questions, You need to ask the people what questions. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's about co-creation, right? Like, I truly believe in co-creation. If you're gonna, I'm so sorry, I love an example, but if you're gonna come to me with like 5 guys in your hand and you're like, hey V, I know you're so hungry, you traveled all the way from London, here's like food for you. And then you're saying like, what would you like in this bag? I've got a cheeseburger and a vanilla milkshake or a chocolate milkshake. I'm going to have to choose from what you're now bringing. You don't know if I'm gluten-free. You don't know if I even like burgers. You don't even know if I, like you need to actually ask me, hey, here are all the restaurants in the area. Shall we go in together? Here's the menu. Choose what you'd like. Then by the time we get to actually eating, we don't have to worry about that gluten-free issue because I would have chosen. But you're choosing for me.
Right.
And then expecting me to like clap hands for you or be grateful, like, wow, like we have like scholarships and youth incentives and this is amazing. No. Where was I when you were even thinking about making that survey? You need to just like, ask me what I want to be asked. Ask me what data you're supposed to be looking for, because now you do a survey, you spend all this money distributing it, then you're like, oh, the data, we don't know what to read in the data. I wonder why. I wonder why.
Do you like burgers? Okay, good.
Just off the record.
Off the record, that's good to know.
No pickles.
We're not saying that that's the choice, no pickles.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
No pickles.
So you kind of mentioned like at the survey, right? Making sure that we're included there.
Yeah.
But it kind of sounds like there's even more levels of inclusion.
There's more.
Like at what points is there a recommendation of like these points are the right points?
Like even to build on that as well, like when you do the survey, like maybe the survey has got the great questions and you're asking all the right stuff. This thing that I hate, like I used to be invited, we won't name names, at Oxford, right? So I used to be invited, don't tell anyone, but like I'd be invited to give a talk at Oxford and they ask me like, hey V, like what's your suggestion for this thing? And I'm like, yeah, we get into it, a very impassioned discussion. I'm like, wow, like they're really hearing me. This is amazing. A year later, we're back at the same event. I'm getting asked the same question. I'm like, you didn't want to get a suggestions box at least?
Yeah.
Double check what you asked me last year. Like, you asked me for my input. I gave you my input. A year later, you're asking for my input and I'm going to give my input. Like, we're just talking. So like if I'm going to do this survey, you're going to have this national survey, young people fill it in. They actually tell you what they want and need. Then you're like, man, it's going to be difficult. Anyway, let's carry on with the plan as it was. And now you get to tick a box to say, we did ask them, but did you implement it? Did you actually read what they were saying? Did you want to know? That's the first thing. Yes, because people sometimes are like, we want to change, like, we don't know what to do. Then they hear it, they're like, oh, anyway, we'll leave that for the next group of people who handle this issue, right? And that bothers me because it's like you're wasting my time. And when I say my time, I'm talking about young people's time.
Right.
Like, I hate tick box exercises with a passion because these are real lives. These are real people. And young people, number one, we have the highest number of young people we've ever had in the history of time. But yet we're underrepresented in so many areas, in our like voting rights, in being able to like truly exercise our freedoms, right? Like we are the biggest, but yet the smallest voice in the room. So when you do send that survey and you're going to ask me for 10 minutes of my time, ask yourself, is this a really good use of my time?
Right.
And what are you going to do with it after? That's what I want to know.
Does it sometimes, or maybe often feel like tokenism?
Yeah. That's exactly what was on the tip of my tongue. It feels like tokenism. It feels like you came in the school, you've heard from them, but you won't take it back to your meeting because you know they might ask you to do it.
Right.
Right? It's like, who's going to have that task?
Well, kind of thinking about that, right? Like,
some people are like,
we're talking about like not even the beginning, right? Throughout the whole process. If there's a campaign, the design, are we talking implementation?
From the beginning. So the moment you think, oh, we really want to run a survey, like a big survey that's going to impact our practice and our policy and like the next program we're putting out or whatever it may be, from that moment is when you have youth participation, and not just like the meaningless engagement. We're talking about that co-creation, that implementation. You might even use youth services to implement the stuff. You might even end up like employing a group of young people to help you actually do the thing, you know, like for us, by us, with us, right? Like it runs deep. It should just not be, it should be a non-negotiable is my point. Because how are you representing me when I'm not there? Like why? It's not like there's a shortage of talent, right? If I had to say, like, I'm representing pretty well right now, right? Like, I think I've been doing my work. I feel like I'm an expert in my field, and that's just in my space. There are many young people who would happily sit with you in the work that you're doing, who are very qualified. They just might not have the title. But they've been doing the work in the community. They might have a youth organization. They might have some kind of community organizing that they're doing about that issue. You can reach out. You can work with them. Like, there's not a shortage. It's just you might not be looking hard.
I think you bring up a good point. We were talking to Justina Miles and Marley Diaz yesterday, and they had mentioned we want to help. Like,
This is
we
the thing.
want to be there. And you ask
Yeah.
us, and even both of them representing different types of community, we're even saying, like, go to the community you're representing, involve them there.
Yeah.
That is effective. Like, in your experience, you
100%.
see.
100%. And I mean, I always ask, I'm like, oh, so, you know, you're working in a space with young people and like, you know, you're creating programs for young people. How many of you have actually been able to go meet the young people who are using the programs you're making? Like, you know, when you're giving something to a community, how many of you have ever had the chance to actually go see it in action and hear the live feedback on the spot? Because sometimes you're in an office somewhere being like, wow, we did great. That was amazing. You go and you look and it's not great. And I mean, that example that I gave that other time of a foundation that I was working with, and I was sitting with the head of it, and he was like, we had this campaign of like trying to help young people with access in education. So we thought it's the age of the pandemic. They need access to like tech. So they sent over a bunch of laptops and phones and stuff. And they were like, yeah, like we did amazing. They sent it off to, it could have been Zambia, I believe, maybe. They sent it off. They were like, us. We've raised that money. We did it. He went to visit that program. I think 6 months later, 8 months later, the laptops and phones were gone. Because why are you sending me that and I've got no internet access? You know what I mean? Like, oh, you've ticked this box of we gave access to technology, but I don't have internet access.
Right.
And when he spoke to the people, they were like, oh, well, it's because we needed money for food. So we sold it for like the price of bread. A phone for the price of bread, because that's more valuable in that moment than what you're trying to give. Like, think about the user journey. If I send a phone to you and you're living in the village in Zambia, but you have no internet access, what help is a phone I can't charge? To display it on the wall? Right? Like, that level of like detail and that level of care of understanding what context are you living in when we're implementing a new health program, when we're implementing the user who's going to use this. Number one, are they able to actually use it? Which bizarre question. You would think that would be the first thing you explore. But if you had those young people from that village in Zambia in the room and you suggested, hey, we want to send laptops, they just said, we'll save you the journey. We're going to sell that within a month because I can't charge it.
Point. Like, I think those are really good sort of like global examples. And if we're thinking a little more locally, like I love the survey and inclusion in the implementation, but I'm also thinking about a lot of us in the room, like we create ads on social, or we will create, different reading materials and distribute those in the areas where we know that they're going. Are there other ways that we can think really intentionally about very precise ways that should be included? Like you mentioned feedback in them, right? Like if we're doing ads or social media posts or something like that, and we want them to participate, what can we do to be more intentional to make sure that that's actually effective? Right? Because I hear you, and sometimes it's just not easy to be in that room.
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to take it also from if I'm only able to do it from a backseat perspective, do you have advice in that?
Yeah, and it's just gonna sound so repetitive once again. Like you have to consult youth. Like it doesn't matter how strenuous that process is or how difficult that process is, but how are you going to run like an ad campaign on socials that is supposed to be talking to me, but yet you don't know if I'm going to be able to hear you? you're talking to me in a language that I might not even like understand or like want to engage with. You have to. And I mean, we spoke before, but there was an example of I was working with a really large organization on like a meaningful youth engagement campaign for like 10 months. And when I first walked in this happened before me, but when I walked in, I'm like, oh, can I see like where we're at with this campaign before I like take over? And they're like, yeah, we've got this amazing idea. Like we've invested, and I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of pounds into a campaign that centered around like an Instagram filter. But this Instagram filter, when I tried it, number one, it was glitching. After that much, like you think there's a test run. But then number two, it was such a long process to do this thing of like putting the camera on your face and you've got to like raise your hand and you got to like put it here. There were so many steps you had to take for you to use this filter. And I was thinking, me and my friends, the way that we operate on social media, number one, if I'm going to use something that's interactive, I don't want my face in it. So that now when I post it and I have to tag you, all my friends are going to see this. No, I want something that doesn't include my face, because if I'm going to do that, I'm going to be like, let me get ready and look cute, right? So already, when I'm supposed to have just done that filter in 10 seconds, which is like your version of a survey, I'm like, I'll do it later when I feel like I'm dressed up. You've already lost me, number one. Then number two, I'm now doing it. It's a bit glitchy. It's not really making sense. The instructions aren't that clear. I'm frustrated. You've lost me again. Number three, socially, it doesn't look cool. It just wasn't even approachable. And I said to them, guys, we're going to have to scrap that idea. They're like, but and I said, just because you spent time on it and you've invested money into it doesn't mean it's a good idea. And you can't say we're sticking to this for the next year or two because it got signed off by somebody. If it's not working, it's not working. And had you had somebody young in the room at the start, you'd have saved yourself a lot of money. Unfortunately, these are the consequences of not listening to your audience, your community, the people you're trying to serve. If they say this is not going to work, you can't carry on with that campaign idea just because. That doesn't make sense. So that's stuff that I see, like where they're like, oh, our social campaigns, they're not reaching our audience. Because you're not talking to your audience. You're not talking to your audience. So that it's really hard to answer any question without saying consult youth. It could be on a large scale or a small scale. I'm not saying like in your offices you have to have like a young person stationed at no, of course not. Like I understand that you have your roles that you have to do and you're here to serve youth, and you can't at every single turn be like, we're going to have a young person in our office. That's a very different kettle of fish.
Right.
But when you're doing something that it's going to be so youth facing, you need to hear their feedback. Why not save yourself the hassle is what I'm curious about. Like, why wait until that survey is complete to understand, oh, the reason we had a low turnout of people using the filter is because they didn't want to put their face on social media about a campaign that's going to essentially tell people like, I'm going through this thing, that thing. Because I'm assuming that the stuff that you guys are putting out, you're going to have to basically identify yourself as like, oh, that health issue that's concerning me. And how many people don't even talk about being on their period, let alone being like, actually, I need help from that program. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
out of curiosity, in the room, show of hands, how many of you either work directly with youth or have access to youth that could be a part of a process? That's a lot of hands. If your hand isn't raised, pay attention to the hands around you that are raised. Those are people you should be having conversations with that can help you get across that aisle.
It should just be like tick, like it's flowing. You know when to tap into it, when to not. Like there's moments when it's like, okay, that's your load to carry and go and implement, and we'll leave you to it, but at least you've heard what we're saying, you've got that co-creation. Then there's a level that's like deeper, there's different levels to it, and like no one is saying there's a one size fits all like that. I could never sit here because I don't know the young people that you guys are exactly working with, and we're multifaceted, we're diverse, our needs are diverse. So only you know who your audience, you should know who your community and audience are. You should be able to visualize who, like right now as I'm talking, when you're thinking of the young people that you work with, you should be able to visualize or like at least know some characteristics or something.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But all I do know is that youth voice isn't, and you can tell, by the way, like the things that come out that had somebody in the room versus the ones that didn't. You can just tell.
We heard from someone yesterday that sort of talked to that point. It's like, if you're trying to include everyone and make it equitable, you can actually oftentimes make it inequitable unintentionally. And I think that's something that, you kind of touch base, like you just said it right there, and it really kind of hit home for me. Do you have like a story or example? And I love that you talk in examples. That's our favorite here. That when you saw it go right, when they spoke really authentically, they really addressed the barriers. They really talked and focused on what the motivations and hitting those right and the expectations. And you really saw, oh, okay, we got this one right. And we feel like we're being heard and we can't wait to do it.
Yes and no. And I'll say, because you never arrive with this type of work, right? I never want anyone to think, oh my God, like if we do that thing, like today, what Vee just said, then yeah, we've done it. You never arrive, because our world is ever evolving, and like looking at pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic, looking at the rise of AI versus now, like the needs are changing at such a rapid pace that you've got to always be willing to revisit. So that's just off the bat. Like,
Right.
that you're not going to just go in and be like, we consulted that group of young people that one time in our survey 5 years ago. Let's keep referring to that. No, like it's almost like you're committing to a journey of continuous learning, a journey of continuous pivoting based on what you're hearing. Because if you're constantly listening and hearing, you're going to be implementing. And that's the whole point. But a time that I saw a beautiful moment that felt really beautiful to me, but still had some issues in it, was obviously, like, I spend a lot of time at the UN, and we were all thinking, like, why are you always trying to add on youth? Like, it's always like an afterthought of, okay, like we've organized this, now we're adding on youth. Like, where is the youth office? We have an office for everything, but not youth. So youth always get tagged onto like UN Women, or they get, and it's like, no, like we, like I said, have our own needs. So a group of young people campaigned endlessly for a few years about getting a youth office. And this was something that like was just not on the cards. Like we just were like, oh, is this really going to happen? Like, is the UN really going to open its doors? Because like I said, they had us like young leaders for the Sustainable Development Goals, like 17 of you from around. I was so happy, but you're still under the office of somebody else trying to operate your work. No budget, no like your own place to do your thing. No, you're in someone else's space. So young people said, that's not good enough. Like, if you're calling this the home of youth, literally, where is our office?
Right.
So there was a campaign that went on, and it got voted in, and we finally have a youth office as of 2023, which was like, oh wow, what an amazing victory. Youth actually now have a home at the UN. We were really happy about it. Then, like, I think a month in, we were like, okay, so now where's the money? Right? Like, where's the money?
Yeah.
Because you're expecting us to contribute to advancing this huge agenda that we have, this 2030 agenda, trying to have the world be more sustainable, all the countries working together, all of this stuff. And you're saying that young people are like leading this, they're championing this. You're giving us awards, you're giving us praise. You acknowledge the work we're doing. Where's the money? Where's the money? And to this day, we're still looking for the money. And it's about to be the end of 2024. So that's what I was talking about at the UN last week. I was like, where's the money?
Right.
Because and now you're thinking, you gave an award to that young person in Zimbabwe who's doing amazing work, advocating. Like, I have this amazing friend called Paul. He's doing such great work advocating for young people who are living with HIV. Phenomenal. And they will praise his name. But he struggles to get himself to the UN because the funding isn't there. And that concept blows my mind. Because when I'm sitting on the panel next to all these presidents, heads of state, they're all paid. You imagine trying to say, hey, Mr. President, can you just do this role for the next 10 years, but we've got no funding, no budget. Can you imagine? But yet, so yeah, that was the time it went right, where like we got the result of like, we have an established youth office. We now have a new head of youth. He's amazing. And he's really trying to like lead this like campaign. But it's like, why are we always having to fight for, like, we've got so much work to do that funding should be the last thing that we're wasting our time talking about.
Right. It's more of like there is a bigger picture.
There's always a
it's not
bigger
just what we
picture.
asked for, but
Yeah.
there are downstream and upstream
Then they'll say,
of facts.
yeah, then they'll say, I know what's coming next. I can predict the future. They'll say, wow, we found budget. We did it. Look, there's funding for youth here. Now we have to talk about how that funding needs to be unrestricted and flexible and diverse, because guess what? Young people, we're not just one. Like, I might sit here and say, oh yeah, I'm representing young people, but really I'm representing a portion of young people, because we all look, sound, feel different. And even if it was a group of young Black girls, I'm still not fully representing, because young Black girls have a diversity of how they operate.
Right.
Like, so there's that as well, where funding, but then there's like what type of funding. Then so there's always, you never arrive, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like every triumph, that's great. And I'm actually, an important point is when you do have those moments of like, wow, we got that youth office, I do think you should pause, celebrate it, and acknowledge the fact that you've just made like a monumental step, but then also acknowledge that, okay, the work is just beginning. Like never being afraid to know that there's more to do, but also recognizing that you've just done great. So like as champions of youth, even, like I don't want you to feel like disheartened, like, oh, we're not doing good enough. You can acknowledge all of the steps that you're making towards being more equitable, inclusive, having that youth voice. And maybe you're starting off with like, I don't know, like a Zoom group of like youth advisors, and that's where you're starting. Then eventually you're starting with like having them in the room. Then maybe one day you're like, actually we'll use a youth service to implement this work. Like there are stages and steps to it. So I don't think it should feel like if we're not doing the full thing, we're failing. No, but also never over praising yourselves that you get comfortable. Like we did great, that done.
Right.
Like so it's a healthy balance.
Right.
I think.
Back to kind of what you said about the budget piece, because I mean, I think everyone in here can relate to the idea of limited funds, limited resources, right? A lot of folks in this room are based in Virginia or close by. They work with local audiences, and people are getting access, and I think people are hearing about the inclusion. How would you recommend, like, funding resources are not always easy, and so how would you recommend other sort of yes, at the table, hearing them? Are there other opportunities to think about, like specific steps where I'm able to do that for, the more localized people working tobacco prevention or substance use prevention, childhood obesity, nutrition? There's all sorts of different topics here. So we're really talking about working across the aisle. How would we sort of address other types of resources and stuff that we can advocate for when sometimes funding isn't available?
It's right to know how it works, but I'm curious how you end up wanting to like implement something for youth or young people that you're going to put in out, or wanting to run like a social media campaign or whatever it may be. But then in the end, there's lack of budget for the young people. Like I'm just curious, how did it even get signed off in the first place? Because if you don't have the budget and the lack of funding for that kind of thing, surely you have to go find the funding before you. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm wondering how do we end up in a situation of, man, we really want to have that young person come up to speak, or we really want to have you implement your work in this project, but we don't have the funding, so we're just going to ask you to like just give like a quick survey and that's it. Like, how did you get to that point is what I'm curious about. Because it should have probably been like one of the first things you allocate for. Then you say, and I challenged somebody one time. I was like I said before, work it backwards, like end with the president and you'll find the funding, right? Like end with the president or end with the CEO's salary. You'll find the budget. You'll find the budget. Right?
Yeah.
Like maybe go the other way around, because I know everybody will be working day and night to find that. But what? For your CEO? But yeah, I'm just curious, like, how did it happen? Like, why did you launch the idea if you're not ready? Like, even for me right now, like my time with being a young leader for the Sustainable Development Goals is coming to an end, and they're asking us for the feedback. And I'm like, why did you always, every time it's like last minute, we're scrambling, but why did you launch the program? Why did you launch the program? Because we will show up, young people, we will show up, we will do our work, and now while we're here, you want to tell me now you've got a lack of fun?
So how does it feel then when we are able to sort of get to that point where like really you all are, even on the local, we're starting to feel accepted and included and all that stuff? Like, because I think it's important to also understand, like, okay, when we do that, how does that like actually make you feel?
It's amazing. You feel, number one, seen, heard, valued, respected. You know, you
Yeah.
feel like, oh, wow, you really heard me. And I think in this world, no matter what relationship it is, no matter what world you're in or what role you play in your workplace, feeling heard and feeling truly accommodated, I think there's no better feeling than that. Like, why are we having to alter this entire hotel and revamp it because somebody has came to the check-in desk who is using a wheelchair and now everyone's panicking? Why didn't you build the hotel to begin with a ramp anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Do you get my point? Like, why are you having to work backwards to tweak it? You should have, when you visualize this hotel, you should have visualized, we'll need a ramp, we'll need a lift, it should just already, so when I arrive, it's not, I don't want you to be like, we worked hard to include you. I should have just been in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, that's what bothers me. And when I show up and I don't have to go to the desk and someone has to talk on my behalf and say, we need a ramp, I walk in, I'm just wheeling myself in because I have the autonomy, the independence, because this place was built with someone like me in mind.
Right.
There's no better feeling than that.
Yeah.
You know?
You find the energy shifts like when those things start to happen
Yeah.
in your peers, like the energy shifts completely to focus more on like the initiative.
So instead of spending an hour at the desk having to fight for, they're now bringing in and telling us the expertise of why they were here in the first place. Now we've missed a whole hour of their time and knowledge because they've had to be messing around with something that's so, why is that not already implemented into this thing?
You start to see the value of participating instead of asking for something.
Yeah, like if you have to, I said this to the people at the UN, I said, if all the leaders in this room have to go back to their countries and say, hey, this is what the Summit of the Future was, this is what the Pact of the Future is that we adopted, this is what, and you're now telling me you're getting it wrong because I should have been co-creating with you. I should have been there you need to think about like the order of steps that you're taking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody in the room can do that when they go back to their organizations. I think that's a very simple step you can take of just thinking, who decided this? Like, who was in the room when this was being decided? Because is it representative? Is it truly representative? Is it truly inclusive? And how is it going to be received? You can go back and no matter what stage of the organization you're in, you can look at that. And you can say, actually, I'm going to be the champion for you. You shouldn't be a champion for youth only today because it says it all over. Your champion of youthness should be shining through no matter what. And I always have this quote that my friend says of, if the world was silent and we could only watch what you're doing, what does it say about the kind of person you're trying to become? So if I was looking at your organization, which probably has the word youth in it at the front or something like, youth, whatever, if I didn't have all the papers and the forms and all the stuff that you're trying to like convince me that this was co-created with young people, if I just watched the organization for like a month, what does it say about what you're actually trying to do?
I think you bring up a good point. Like, it's not, don't just, and you use the word consulted, which I think is a word that I kind of want to put a little highlight on, because I think when you and I talked before, you had mentioned like being consulted is good, but being with you is better.
Of course.
And so when you said when you said consulted, I was like, yes. Do you have recommendations of maybe some tangible things that we can make sure that you're with us? Like, for example, we mentioned asking for resources or funding. What are some tangible things I think that we could benefit from of understanding, not consulted, but bring with to have those conversations? How do we approach that when we're asking for those resources to
be asking? Like, I'm curious, like, who are we all talking? Who is it? Who's the person who holds the budget?
Yeah.
That's what I need to know. Like, who are we? Are we not the people? Like, are we not the champions for youth? Like,
Right.
I'm curious as to, unless there's a layer I'm missing here where like maybe everybody here might feel exactly the same way as I'm feeling, but then there's somebody who they have to also like ask or I don't know, because I'm just like, if you are the person who is the facilitator of the youth program, or you're the person who helps to distribute it, or you're the person who like, you are the person.
Yeah. So let's say we're going to that person. Like you and I went to this person and said, maybe it's not money, but I need access to a school or a club or a community center to get in front of people, or I need, I don't know, more paper or some kind of stuff. How does the conversation then actually change when you are with me in the room? So it's not me asking.
Yes.
So how does it completely change? Have you found in the past that when the young people are there, that people are still like, oh no, okay, I hear you, but that's not happening? Or does it shift when you're the one helping me at that table with that voice?
It changes because my needs are at the forefront. I think it's easy to forget something or someone when they're not right there in front of you, you're hearing them. Like I'm saying about the hotel, it's easy to be like, yeah, great concept. But if you were sitting there and you're in a room where you can see people who are with their wheelchair, you are not going to forget to put a ramp.
Right.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
In front of you.
Yeah, because you're going to be like, how am I going to have a discussion? How are you going to have a discussion with me right now about an issue that concerns race, and you're not going to acknowledge the fact that I'm a Black girl?
Right.
It's impossible because we're having the discussion. You can see me. You can hear me.
Right.
I'm right here. Whereas if it was you, perhaps in a room with like a group of white people and you're deciding on something, you might forget that, oh, we need to think about how hair in the professional space, because that might not be something that affects you in that way, not because you don't care, or maybe because, you know, you're trying to purposefully exclude, but sometimes we're human. We're people of flesh. Like, of course you're going to have points that you miss. That's why you should try to have a table that's as representative as possible. Because then I can remind you, oh, by the way, you forgot. Like, I think they were talking about going to the moon, right? And they were like, oh man, tampon. Do you see what I'm trying to say? But it's not like...
I mean, yes.
It's not like, oh, on purpose, let them bleed. Don't give them what they need. But you might be so focused on, is the rocket ship working, that you forget this thing that feels minor to you, but to me could be such a game changer. Because moon, sky, wherever, it's coming.
Right.
Right? So it's things like that. Like, if you have me in the room, or at least you've done something where you're constantly hearing from me, even if, like I said, you're not going to have all of your team meetings at 9 a.m., young people in the room. Of course, I understand that. Like, I am realistic. However, if at least as you're going with each stage, you're checking back in or something, someone can flag, by the way, tampons and pads are important to also consider, because you might have people going to space who are
women.
Do you see what I'm trying to say? Whereas, like, in that room, in that moment, you might forget it. So we need to build the ramp. We need to think about race and inclusion. We need to think about all of this stuff. But how do you do it if the people constantly making the decisions look the same, sound the same? It's the same people. Never thinking about young people, never allocating budget to think, oh, if we're inviting a young person all the way from Namibia to come in and even fine, because I'm thinking I keep going so global, but like, even if you're in Los Angeles versus in like Pennsylvania or something, there is a bit of a journey to go. You're thinking, oh yeah, they'll show up because they care. Oh, well, they still need to think about their journey, their transport, their pay, there's still all this other stuff that you need to think about for that journey. You can't just say we invited them, they didn't show up. Why didn't they show up? Could they show up? Did you ask them what they need in order to show up? Because their needs are very different to your needs. As someone who's a full-time employee of that organization, who you know you've got security because you work there, what does a young person who we're engaging with need in order to actually show up? Because it's one thing to have me in the room, but if I can't fully actually participate, that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Right.
It never ends.
Okay.
Oh, I'm tired just saying it.
So when you're able to sit in the room, it gets more authentic. You're able to speak the language, and you're exponentially more likely to get what you need. Because, I mean, to be honest, if Vee were to come into your office and say that she needed something, do you think you could say no?
And the thing is, there's plenty of me where I come from.
Okay.
There are plenty of other young people in their fields, in their space, who could come in and help you. Like, let us help. Let us be there. Let us, like, include us, you know? And I gave this talk at this place with these people. Let's keep it vague. And I was on the stage, and they were talking about, like, trying to think of ways that how do we introduce new things that young people will love? And I was listening in the room. I was like, okay. I looked around the room. I was the only young person there. But in that case, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't supposed to be that way, right? Like, today we're here talking about the champions for the youth. And like, it's almost like a peer-led situation, right? Where you guys are going to be exchanging ideas, talking amongst each other and like learning from the people on the stage, learning from each other. Like, this is intentionally meant to be like this, right? That room wasn't supposed to be like that, right? So I get on the stage, I say what I say, I do my thing. I get off the stage and the CEO of it was like, man, I'm so embarrassed. I said, what's going on? There were 300 people in the room. I said, well, what you just said, look around the room, like there are no young people. She was like, next year, I'm going to put one young person at each table. And I said, well, then you're going to have to bring me back again because you've missed the point. You've missed the point. That's called tokenistic.
Okay.
Because she was like, but doesn't it look good? I was like, yeah, but this is representative of the world, actually. You're all in here discussing all of this stuff. And she said, oh yeah, next year. I literally was like, I have a long life to live. You got?
Yeah.
She's like, oh man, the pictures are not going to look great. The pictures are not going to look great. We should have had a young person at the head of each. Why? That's not true, meaningful youth engagement.
It's for youth, but we still have youth giving presentations. We have a few more later today. I'm just letting you know, like we're trying here. I've used that, like I've interviewed some yesterday where it was like they're actually doing the programs and I'm asking them, how does it feel? What is working for you? What is not working for you? So we're trying.
In my next talk, I'm like, I was at this Champion for Youth Summit.
We don't want to do that.
Just kidding.
So we talk about empowerment a lot.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that you have given a lot of really great advice of how we can feel empowered. But again, I kind of want to speak to the room specifically. Like, we love the UN, but a lot of us don't work on that level. And so thinking a little locally and yes, being in the room, being every step of the way, and it can be tangible, but I want to make sure that there's motivation. We also talk a lot about that. How can we empower this room to really think more intentionally and positively? And how do we motivate this in here? Like, we're telling them yes, but what motivates the room in your experience to say, okay, now I really want to do this?
I think it's about being intentional in like taking your role and that title you have like to the heart, right? Like if they are saying that you are like the lead facilitator for this thing, for the action group for youth, or like reread that title and be like, how do I truly embody this title? If I want to be a champion for youth, for example, you can't just be an expert in like what you're doing and being good at what you're doing, because that's why they hired you, right? Like you are the best in your game and they know that they can trust you to take on that task and you will be able to like implement it and bring it to life. But are you also like still reading around the issue? Like if you're serving young people and you're really, really good at what you do specifically, you still need to read around to understand the developments that are happening in the youth space, understand like what our new demands are. You don't have to be, for example, like working at the UN in order to know like what the young people are advocating for at the UN, or maybe at their local high school, or maybe at their like, I think keeping your ear to the ground as someone who's in this space and never being above that learning, that idea of you're never too old to learn at all, because it's like you should constantly be updating yourself. So maybe there's like a podcast that you listen to every morning where you're hearing those thoughts, and maybe you're tuning into like, I don't know, like the youth newsletter or whatever that may be, where you're hearing those voices constantly, even if you are directly not going to be the person that's working with young people directly, because like I said, you're in the budget team or like you're in the Excel side or whatever it may be, you still need to immerse yourself in the world of what you're working to serve, I feel.
Right.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
So increasing your own access to what you don't have access to. Like some people raised hands, some people didn't. So now we're talking about like, hey, get that person's information.
Yeah.
I want the newsletter that you give to youth. I want to hear the successes that you went through.
Wasn't your hand raised, I guess, is the question, right? Like, what can you do to change that so that you actually do get to go and hear? Like, maybe asking the team, hey, guys, I know that, like, maybe it's not actually in what I need for the thing that I'm doing on my task, but is it okay if I actually go and see one of the programs that we created from 3 years ago? See how that's still going? Is it okay if I actually talk to some of the young people once in a while? Like, I think just keeping yourself open to hearing, learning, getting that feedback, maybe even challenging yourself to read some of the negative feedback, because that's where the room for improvement is, right? Like, even just, yeah, immersing yourself. Like, people ask me, like, why are you still at school? Like, I'm doing a PhD program right now, and I'm in my second year, and they're like, V, like, you're already kind of like doing the work that you want to be doing. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to keep on learning. I want to keep on diving deep into this. And I was lucky enough to get an honorary doctorate degree in July, where technically I am a doctor now, right? Like, I'm Dr. Vee Kativhu. I'm leaving
Okay.
school. Oh, thanks, guys.
She's a doctor.
Yeah, I am. And I could literally be like, oh, well, done. But no, because I wasn't in school only to become or to be called Dr. V. So it's like almost a funny trick from the university. Be like, well, you got the title now. Let's see what you're going to do. I'm staying. I'm going to write that dissertation. My thesis is going to be about how Black girls experience high school in the UK and how connected they feel to the curriculum and the policies and practices. And my mom didn't ask me to do a PhD. She's like, girl, I'm happy. She's fine. Right? If I dropped out, she'd be like, well, that's your choice. Nobody is asking me to do it, but it's almost like further research. I want to learn more. I want to be challenged further. Like, I want to know that I am investing in this field that I'm in, because if you're at a summit called Champions for Youth, I want to know that you are championing youth wherever you can,
Right.
however you can, even if in that meeting, the question wasn't directed to you, because like I said, maybe you're on that like budget side or whatever, or the financial side, or maybe you're in the HR team, or you're not exactly directly engaging with the youth. You should still be able to champion youth.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. And even kind of on the converse side, the people that did have their hand raised, kind of to the
Yeah.
point, like, you're not done. You're going to continue to
Oh,
provide
you're
access.
not done.
But like now these people have, like, we have an empowerment
Yeah.
to say, okay, well, you have access. How are you reaching across the table to the
Yeah.
people that didn't, to say,
Yeah.
hey, I see you didn't have your hand raised? Or even in my own work here, in my own office, like if you and I work together and you had access and I was, HR,
Yeah.
that there's now an opportunity for you to say, okay,
Yeah.
hey, I don't, but I do. Do you want to talk about what I have? Like,
Mhm.
does that also get effective, or does that seem like encroaching on someone's territory?
No, I think that there's always room for like co-learning, peer-to-peer, swapping information. Like, I think that's the beauty of it, especially if no matter what organization, because you're all in different organizations, titles, or like facilitating in different ways, the fact that like you're all champions for youth should be the overarching like mission, vision, goal that you're all sharing. So everything has to go back to that. Like, how is this actually empowering for young people? How is this actually going to serve them? How is this, no matter what level of that organization? So I think basically no one gets a pass to say, well, I'm not actually involved in that, so that's not, no. For as long as you're working in a place that says youth, even it's intervention, but it's for youth, right? Even if you're saying, oh, well, I'm more on the science side and we're thinking of like, the things that we're going to give them when they're like trying to take away tobacco. I'm trying to use the language. I did not know the language, but like trying to do the thing. You should still know that you are contributing to championing youth, so it keeps going back to that. And you might not be the person that's going to go do the survey and run it and sit with the young person, but you should still have an idea of what's happening. Like, no one is above it, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Nobody in your organization should be above being a champ. Everybody should be able to say we are all champions of youth in this organization, not just the person who ends up on the microphone.
Right.
That is the point. Blank. Period. You know?
Period. I'm curious, like, your just advocacy and the empowerment towards us, and just like it just radiates off of you. It is intoxicating. Like, I feel like I need to get off the stage and like go call my cousin and be like, hey, I just want to know like what's going on. What do you need in life? Like, I feel
That's
ready to like
funny.
really go. I'm just kind of curious, like, what's next for V? Where's V gonna go now?
Honestly, I'm not even kidding. I know my mom's going to be like, when you get off that stage, I've got homework. I have a paper due on Friday. But yeah, that's really what my focus is right now, is school. Like, I'm in school, I'm earning this PhD, and as an advocate for girls' education specifically, I believe it's the honor of a lifetime to be able to sit in that room knowing that I'm safe, I'm at peace, I can exist loudly, I can show up as myself, because the work that I do, I've seen some things, you know, like I've been to Cambodia, I've been to Zambia, South Africa. I've seen girls at the age of 12, like forced into child marriage, taken out of school. I've seen so much, and I've seen young people who are losing their lives wanting to be in a class happening right now in Afghanistan. Like, girls are literally dying for wanting an education. There are underground schools happening. So much so when I'm sitting in that room, I'm like, I've got homework. I'm like, I've got homework, and I get to do my homework and hand it in and still wake up tomorrow knowing that it's not going to cost me my life.
Wow.
So I feel like being a student right now, doing this PhD and seeing it through and giving it everything it requires is my life's like mission at this point. So I've got 3 more years of that. Then when that is complete, then I'm like, okay, like I can now go in and like start to do some of the work that I've been talking about. But until then, I will carry on advocating, speaking to incredible rooms like this while doing my schooling, and just trying to also remember that I'm young and give myself grace to also like live, make mistakes, go to the club, you know, because
Okay.
ooh, ooh. Because as much as like I have this, like, it's almost like Hannah Montana, like I have this side of life. I still owe it to myself to make sure that what I'm preaching, I'm practicing. So if I'm going to be talking about girls' education, advocating for female empowerment, on the other side of empowerment is living a life that you choose, living audaciously, living loudly. And so I need to make sure that as much as I'm advocating, I'm also like living and still remembering to be young, but still being young also is doing this. So like trying to keep afloat the two worlds. But yeah, immediately it's homework.
Yeah. Wishing you all the best and big A's all around on the homework and the dissertation. Thank you doesn't seem strong enough of a word, let's just say, for your time today. And you know, in empowering us, I feel like we also all now have immediate homework that we need to do.
Yes.
And so
Good.
I feel like we're able to think differently about that. And I hopefully you all feel the same from hearing such a
So just want to say, sorry to interrupt you,
No,
CJ,
absolutely.
but I just want to say that like, I think it's incredible that you guys host something like this, where like, even walking into the room, because I'm sure you could be doing anything else with your time, you could be spending it even like catching up on that budget sheet or whatever, you know, but you're in this room learning. I've seen people making notes. I know that there's probably strong conversations happening, and it's not something light to be calling yourselves champions for youth. I think it's incredible. So I just want to also say thank you, because there are some people out there in different organizations where they wouldn't even want to consider a summit like this. They wouldn't even want to think about sending anybody here or being here, because it's like, that's nonsense. Let's carry on. It's just about the profit. It's just about getting the thing done and just ticking those boxes. So even the fact that like at 8:30 in the morning, you've walked in to like be here to, do you know what I mean? I think even that alone deserves acknowledgement. And I just want to say thank you, because I think that's amazing. So thank you all.
So you're hearing it first. We're doing the right thing. We've started on the right foot. We're all in the right room. We heard it from youth. We got the first step going.
Yes.
So Vee, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Thank you so much for sharing your voice and providing opportunity for us to learn. It's so important that you were here, and I'm very grateful and humbled by this experience. So thank you so much. Vee Kativhu, everybody.